started off this week talking about the NFL trade deadline, which is quickly approaching. We've already seen some moves that we've kind of briefly talked about, talking about stuff like Chase Claypool going to the Dolphins. There's some rumors that have been going around just about people who could be on the move. So we're going to discuss who could potentially be on the move heading up to the Halloween trade deadline. So we've got a list of about 25 players here. We won't get to all of them, obviously, but we'll hit some of the big names that could potentially be on the move, who they could potentially be going to, and what a trade could look like. So we'll start off. The biggest name on this list, especially after the performance he had on Monday night against the San Francisco 49ers, is Kirk Cousins. How likely do you think a Kirk Cousins trade is, Simon? And if so, who do you think he's going to be going to?
Well, truthfully, I'm not too sure. I think he's one of those guys where, in my head, I think it'd be really weird to see him on another team. I definitely would have thought that he'd be retiring with the Vikings, or whether that be them forcing him out and he's just done, or whether it could be 100 different things, right? But it does feel weird to potentially see Kirk Cousins on a different team. Trying to pick one is tough because there's a lot of teams in this league that would benefit from another quarterback. Immediately, my head goes to a team like the Jets. Maybe. Yep. I feel like, and I don't want to say this because I feel like I'm going to insult some Bears fans here, but maybe the Bears if they want to try and do something like that. Like, there are a lot of teams in the NFL who do need a quarterback. So I think if I were to pick one team that needs him the most, I'd probably say the Jets. How likely that's going to happen, considering they have Aaron Rodgers signed long term, or at least somewhat long term, longer than having Kirk Cousins would ever benefit them for. I don't know. He's definitely a harder one to pin down.
I think the important thing to realize with Kirk Cousins is that he is his deal is expiring. He is going to be a free agent after this year, and I think that's kind of where the conversation comes in around trading him. Like, the Vikings aren't going to be able to keep him. The possibility that they re-sign him with how they've been doing this year, like, are they going to be rebuilding? If so, they probably don't want a 35-year-old quarterback on their team for long term. So trading him is just kind of the idea that you're going to get rid of him for some sort of value before you just lose him in free agency. And so that's what I think is interesting. It's like, do you want to do that if you're the Vikings, or do you want to actually try to make a run for the playoffs? And I think their game against the 49ers could kind of go both ways, because now they are kind of back in contention. They're 3-4. They're right in the thick of the NFC wildcard race now. Do you want to keep Kirk Cousins to finish that out? But also, you've just had Kirk Cousins play the best game of the season, if not the best game of his entire career. And do you want to try to leverage that value to get something for him after teams seeing what he could do against the best defense in the league? That's where it kind of goes both ways for me. I think, like you mentioned, the Jets, I think that's kind of the perfect place for him to go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really see him going anywhere else, because I think if you're the Jets, it just depends how much you want to try to leverage the roster you have. Because you have Aaron Rodgers signed long-term, but he's probably not going to be back this season, as much as he can go on the Pat McAfee show like fucking 5 times a week. And say,
listen, he's not playing football. He's got to do something.
Pat McAfee just needs to, like, get him off the show. It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, well,
like, oh my god.
I actually, I could definitely say this has been the NFL season I've watched the least amount of Pat McAfee for. So I can't say that I've seen too much of the Aaron Rodgers this year, but to be honest with you,
it's just the clips.
Whenever I see,
like,
I was gonna say, whenever I see the clips, it's like it feels like he's on every 10 seconds. I remember sitting in. I'm in a broadcast news program, to explain this, because to the uninitiated, this might sound really weird. But in our newsroom, we pulled up ESPN because why the fuck not? And the Pat McAfee show was on, and Aaron Rodgers was on. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird luck that he's on at this exact moment. We throw it on the TV, then the next day, throw it on. Oh, Aaron Rodgers. What the fuck? What's the chance of that? Like, it's definitely kind of. I understand now that he just has more time. Well, no, I think they still have plenty of guests. I understand that he just has more time now, but how much can an injured quarterback have to say before it's just
before he starts devolving into taking shots at Travis Kelce for taking the vaccine? It's like, oh my god, you're embarrassing yourself. Get the hell off my screen.
Yeah.
Anyways, But I do think
How do
in
you
terms
think
of
Kirk Cousins
that
and Aaron Rodgers would get along in a quarterback room, like watching tape?
they would.
You think so?
Well, they would. They I think they would. They
Big
both,
Kirko, like the big family guy, you know.
I mean, they both don't like taking the vaccine. So, I mean,
True.
Kirk's whole thing is
Yes.
if I die, I die. Aaron Rodgers would probably vibe with that. They're both like
That's
35-year-old
true.
white
Kirk
men.
Cousins would probably
They
fuck with that. That's fair.
Yeah, yeah, they're both like late 30s, early 40s white men. They'd get along fine.
True. Although they do have the same number.
Maybe that. Do they? Isn't Kirk Cousins 8?
Yeah, A-Rod's 8.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot that he's not 12 anymore.
So who's what are they doing?
Kirk Cousins is changing his number then. Aaron Rodgers has already changed it. It's not like Kirk's going back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of deal that goes on.
No, that's going to be the reason that he doesn't go to the Jets. He's like, can't wear number 8
because of the numbers.
Not happening.
I really want it to happen now. Can you imagine? Like I like thinking about them in a quarterback room together.
Yeah.
You think Aaron Rodgers could get Kirk Cousins to try ayahuasca?
Well, that's what I mean, because it's like Family Guy, Christian, Kirk Cousins in a room with with drug
Can you just
user.
imagine it? Like Aaron Rodgers, it's like hey Kirk, listen, like I know you probably haven't done it before, but like hear me out on this. If you just go to a dark room and take some of this stuff, like I don't know, you'll be fine. Geez, Aaron, I don't know about this. Oh, geez. Like,
You're doing your best Morty impression. Hey, A-Rod, my son's a really big fan of you. Can you come meet him? No, fuck that. I hate kids. Do drugs. Yeah,
It would
but
be,
past
it- I
basic defamation of character, what do you actually think of the Jets' chance with Kirk Cousins on their roster?
okay, like I do think if Kirk Cousins goes to the Jets, I think that that Jets team is immediately back to being a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
I think at this point in his career, Kirk Cousins is not that much worse than Aaron Rodgers. Maybe I'm coming off of the high of...
don't disagree, necessarily.
Coming off of the high of last game against the Niners, he looked like a top 5 quarterback in the league. Like, he was insanely precise. He did get a little bit of luck with his terrible throw across the middle to Jordan Addison. Instead of getting picked, it was taken in for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But there was, like, he made some insane throws, especially when under pressure. And it's the kind of thing where everybody likes to hate on Kirk Cousins, but I do think that he has improved quite a bit.
I agree. I actually
after
like to
year
think
after
that
year.
Kirk Cousins is a very, very good quarterback for in the league right now. I think that this is probably the worst team he's had around him.
Yeah,
In
especially
a very long
without Justin
time.
Jefferson now.
Without Justin Jefferson now, it's very true. Jordan Addison is great. Jordan Addison has been great this year. He's not enough. I think that
He's not Justin Jefferson.
He's not Justin Jefferson, of course not. And I think if you throw him on this Jets roster, like I pulled it up just to properly just have it all in front of me, you are giving him Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Tyler Conklin. All of a sudden, this looks way more depressing than it actually is, but you get the point. And with that defense as well, this is just way more balanced of a team. I honestly think that they would very much be a Super Bowl contender with Kirk
Do the
Cousins.
Jets not have anybody past Garrett Wilson? Like, I swear their receiver depth chart looked so much more stacked at the start of the year.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
I mean, they got rid of McCole Hardman, which
They
does
did.
a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's why I started reading it. In my head, I was like, yeah, they have good receivers. And then I started reading names. And the second I listed Alan Lazard as a strong second receiver, I was like, my brain stopped myself and went, wait. That ain't it. That ain't right.
It's down to Garrett Wilson and the Aaron Rodgers leftovers. But,
Yeah.
like, having Garrett Wilson is still, like, an
I'd take
insanely good
Garrett
weapon. And it's not like...
I'd take Garrett Wilson over Addison, I think. Even
I would
then.
too, and I would take Alan Lazard over like KJ Hamler.
The rest of the Vikings.
Yeah.
Well, Hawkins.
Because I mean, Kirk Cousins was throwing to like Brandon Powell to win them the game on Monday. Like
Yeah.
This is I mean
And I
obviously
mean,
you're
this is
gonna miss
also
Justin
probably
Jefferson, but
one of the better O-lines he's played in front of as well, which is another conversation
Yeah.
you can definitely have. Like, it's a very good O-line they have. with the Jets.
It sucks that there's so many injuries on it.
Yeah, that is the thing that immediately sticks out to me as well. Where
it's the
lot of
the
people
defense. I think is the key part.
Yeah.
The defense is the key part. It's by like the Jets' defense
Here.
is probably one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, like hell. Let's
this is
actually
how
take
they're
a look
beating-
at the Kirk Cousins stats. Like how because
Also-
just to like emphasize how much offense he's able to generate. You throw him on that Jets team, who have already, like we've mentioned, had a very good defense. And is it that big of a stretch to say that all of a sudden they're just incredible? Like, because not allowing a lot of points and scoring a lot of points equals winning football games, as crazy as that might sound. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's just...
And I mean... The Jets are coming off of a win against the team that's probably the best in the NFL right now. They beat the Eagles the last time they played a football game with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And they only put up 20 points. Like, that defense has been holding teams. Like, do you not think they're going to beat the Chiefs, holding them to 23 points if they have Kirk Cousins at quarterback?
Yeah.
Like, then they've already beat the... and their schedule gets so much easier because they had to play the Bills, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Eagles in the first 6 weeks of the season. Now with this kind of a schedule left, do you not think they're going to be able to get into the playoffs with Kirk Cousins? Like, I think they could even get into the playoffs with Zach Wilson. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I still think
It's
this
the kind of
Jets
thing-
roster can almost carry itself to a certain degree.
The
But if
defense
they,
especially.
yeah, but if they want to win, you can't win a Super Bowl off Zach Wilson. You can hear all you want about teams that have won the Super Bowl before off of great defense and a good quarterback or a bad quarterback, sorry. And in this case it won't work. I don't think the Jets win jack shit with Zach Wilson. And I don't even necessarily think he's the worst quarterback in the world, but he's not Kirk Cousins and he's definitely not A-Rod.
Yeah, and I think when you if you're thinking about that historically, you're basically asking is the Jets defense as good as the Broncos defense was in 2015
or the
and
Ravens
how much in 2013?
Yeah. And even
Or,
Joe
like,
Flacco
going
wasn't
back
even
even
that bad.
Joe Flacco had a great season that year.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the biggest comparable I can say is the 2015 Broncos where they rolled out the decrepit corpse of Peyton Manning onto the field every night, and the Broncos defense just won them the game.
Well, I mean,
that's what it
then
would be.
past that,
And
you
it's
probably
still
have to go
Peyton
further back.
Manning.
When I said the Ravens, I meant two different Ravens teams. Just hell, the 2000.
Like the 2000, 2000 Ravens with Trent Dilfer at quarterback.
That's the name. I couldn't remember the name of them. But that's another one that comes to mind where it's just the type of thing where clearly either the Jets need to trade for Kirk Cousins or call up the Ravens and ask for some advice.
And that Ravens defense, I don't know,
is
the
legendary.
Jets defense is
yeah,
good
no, it's not.
as good
Absolutely
as the
not.
Ravens
That's not
defense
the,
with Ed
to be
Reed
clear,
and
not the
Ray
argument
Lewis
I was
and-
making. Not at all the argument I was making. I'm just trying to say I'm just trying to say that in a nutshell, I think that the Jets can obviously try and make a run with Zach Wilson. Will it work? Probably not. I don't think that there's any really merit in even trying. Because let's say, best case scenario, Aaron Rodgers regrows his leg. And he, in using whatever science he can come up with, and ends up getting back in time for the playoffs. That's suggesting that they stay positive with Zach Wilson as their quarterback. How much do you trust Aaron Rodgers to come off the bench after sitting on the bench all year, being hurt? Sure, he's reworking his leg, but do you really trust him to come off the bench and probably win a wild card game and then win 4 straight?
Wild card game probably on the road.
That too. Yeah, because that's something that I feel like a lot of people aren't thinking about. Do you really, what's the chances? Sure, A-Rod will be coming off rehab. What's the chance he's fully 100% if he comes back in the playoffs?
Zero.
Exactly.
It's an Achilles.
Exactly.
It's an
That's
Achilles
something
tear.
that not a lot of people are talking about. But in football, it's not necessarily as much of a prime killer as it is in sports like basketball and hockey. But it's still very apparent, and A-Rod will be feeling it for the rest of his career. Whether that affects him in the playoffs this year or next year or the year after that. He'll be feeling it. We have seen whether, I think that you can say whatever you want about how well A-Rod played the year before, but with him getting hurt in week 1, we saw the official end of A-Rod's prime. Like it's the same. I'd argue it's almost the same type of thing where, and sure he fell off the year before, but not that big of a fall off, right? Like it's the same thing as you can like when these types of injuries happen, you can literally label the exact moment that the player was never the same.
Yeah, and I think A-Rod has the chance to come back from it, but I think doing it at any point in this season is just irresponsible from the Jets' perspective. Because I think the chances that he gets re-injured are just so high if he gets
re-injured or even just like, because the thing with an Achilles is it's so easy to re-injure something like that it just doesn't make any sense. And even from A-Rod's perspective, let's say he goes out there, like people are already saying that he should just retire. That was something that was being said after week 1, and imagine he goes out there, wild card, for like 10 snaps, re-injures himself. He's out for the rehabbing for the rest of the summer. Do you really like? What do you think the chances are he comes back after that?
Yeah, I mean he wouldn't like he'd have to miss even if he wants to come back, which I think he would. He'd have to miss most of the next season too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That is kind of interesting. Just to bring it back to the Kirk Cousins thing, I do think of just making that move and riding him out until the end of his deal. We are one person into this list.
God, we fucking suck at this. Okay, we can move on.
just to wrap up on Kirk Cousins though, like I think the big thing is just like do the Jets care that much about this season? Are the Vikings actually wanting to like rebuild, or do they want to try to run out this season? And then just like,
well, that's what I mean. I feel like
whether he's gonna come back to this team.
I feel like a Kirk Cousins trade is a bit of a fantasy type thing, where it's just like, sure, it might make sense on paper, like the ideal. Obviously, like you said, you can imagine. You think that Kirk Cousins going to the Jets would be perfect scenario, like everything works out, everyone wins, but that doesn't always happen in sports. I feel like it's more likely that the Vikings end up running out the season with Kirk Cousins. I think
so too.
I think if anything's going to happen, especially now that, like you said, I believe they're 3-4, right? That is not end of the world. And
like the Niners were 3-4 last year after 7 games.
Yeah, like it's not
to say they're the Niners, but
no, of course not. But they could be a wild card team. Holy crap! I did not know that one of his nicknames was Kirktober. That is so awesome.
I've never heard that before.
You've never heard that? I'm on Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, Pro Football Reference is infamous for nicknames for people that have never been used.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay, because that is Captain
awesome. Captain Kirk, yeah.
Yeah.
Kirktober, no. Just like give me any other player, and they will. Like, let's see.
How are you all enjoying
Have you ever heard anybody called Derrick Henry Tractor Cedo?
I think so, actually. I have heard that before.
There's no way. Way.
That rings a bell. I don't know where I would have heard it, but I think I have heard Tractor Cedo before.
No, it's not. Okay, and then let's see. Russell Wilson. Have you ever heard anyone call Russell Wilson the Asterisk?
Why?
Or Robot Russell.
Well, Robot Russell, because he played like a stupid amount of games in a row. That actually makes sense. The Asterisk? Why?
Okay, but I don't know. Like, none of these... this is a fun thing to do for anybody who's watching. It's just to go on Pro Football Reference and look up random players you know, and just look at the insane nicknames.
What do they got?
Yeah, Tom Brady. That's a great question.
TB12, Tom Terrific, Touchdown Tom.
The Pharaoh? The Pharaoh. Has anybody ever called Tom Brady the Pharaoh?
Just sir. Sir.
Comeback kid? He's 46. Bro, who's
wait. Fucking retiring.
Yeah.
Put the
Peyton Manning. The caveman. Who is called Peyton Manning the caveman? Who has ever done that?
No, that's because of his forehead.
Okay, yeah. Payder. That's actually not that bad.
What's some other?
The sheriff is the one that everybody knows.
Yeah, the sheriff. Yeah. What's
another?
Let's bring it into
What
like
about-
the like fairly recent Pat McAfee, the boomstick.
Has anybody ever called Pat McAfee the boomstick?
What do you think Pat McAfee would respond to somebody calling him the boomstick nowadays?
I don't think he'd turn his head.
You don't
Like,
think so?
I think he would just. I think he would just assume they're
like if
talking
you
to
go
somebody
on
else.
the Pat McAfee podcast and just go, it feels so good to be on a podcast with the boomstick. Do you think Pat McAfee is like going nuts?
I think he would look at you funny.
That sounds like the type
think-
of thing that Pat McAfee probably called himself in like college.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they don't have any fun ones for Aaron Rodgers. They just call him A.
Do they got any
That's
good ones
boring.
for Gino?
That's a good question.
Probably not, because he hasn't been.
No, they don't. They don't.
Eugene Cyril Smith III. I did not know that was his
That's
full
just his
name.
actual name. Yeah.
I guess Gino. That makes sense. Eugene. I'm gonna start calling him Eugene. That's so much better. Eugene Smith.
Can you guess before you look it up? Can you guess what the nickname they have for Tyler Lockett is?
Ooh.
I don't even know how this
Tiny
makes
Ty.
sense. No E. No E. Why? I don't know. No E.
No error. No.
I don't know. I don't know. What does the no E mean? What is that referring to?
DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf doesn't have any. I looked.
Yeah, he just has his incredible name.
DeKalen Zacharias Metcalf.
Yeah, it's a great. I wish I had that middle name. That is so cool.
Zacharias.
Yeah, this is way better than the rest of the list. Let's just go through all this shit on Pro Football Reference. What's another name? Drew Brees.
Richard Sherman. Optimus Prime.
Nothing for Drew Brees. Optimus Prime, really?
Yeah, or Uncle Sherm.
Oh, I've heard
never
Uncle.
heard anybody call them.
I
that.
feel like Uncle Sherm. I've heard. That sounds like something
I've heard-
that would have been said by like the official Seahawks Instagram.
No, that's like that's Uncle Will. That's Will Disley.
Oh,
When I
that's
think when
why
I
was
think
thinking I heard
Uncle,
that
it's
before.
Uncle
Yeah.
Will. Yeah.
You're totally right.
Which I don't even know where Uncle Will came from, but at least that's like accurate. Pro Football does have it. Uncle Will. There we go. There's something at least.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Mahomes. I found some good ones for. Holy shit. Holy shit, that's amazing.
Does Mahomes have some good ones?
He has a
Right,
good one. Okay. Take a guess. He has.
Oh, I just looked at them.
You just saw it?
Fat
Trick
Trick?
Mahomes. Who the
Damn,
fuck has
this pro-
ever
this-
called
this
him
poor-
Fat Trick?
Pro Football Reference writer. Their team just got beat by the Chiefs, and they just want to wreak havoc on
Mahomes.
Mahomes. I've never heard
Showtime.
any.
The
Showtime is not Mahomes.
That's absolutely not Mahomes. Magic Man, the musician, Grim Reaper.
Nobody's ever called him that.
I've never heard that. That is so awesome. What's another like?
We're looking up Justin Herbert.
I could spend the entire podcast doing this. This is way funnier. This is way better than anything else we could ever do.
It's true.
We're
it's
setting the
true.
bar very high for the rest of the time, just because of the fact that I don't know if is this a thing that's well known that they just make up their own nicknames. Is it okay?
Yeah, yeah.
What's like another good one? Fuck, I'm running out of.
Herbert
football
has
players.
nothing.
Yeah, I looked
About,
up
like,
Justin
Dak
Jefferson.
Prescott.
Oh,
Oh, Dak Prescott.
just go to like
Dak Prescott.
Oh, I have one that has potential. Mike Vick.
Oh, yikes.
There's a lot of things that could potentially
Dak-
be said about Mike Vick.
Dak
Nothing.
Prescott is a good one. Dak Prescott is the fortress, apparently, which I've never heard anybody use.
Dak
I also
Prescott-
like that
The fortress.
Dak Prescott's real name is Rain. Rain Dakota Prescott.
I did not know that.
But
Rain
Dak is
Prescott.
his middle name. Yeah.
Wow. I also did not
Prescott,
know
stepping up
that
for the Cowboys.
Mike Vick really did not have a very good touchdown to interception ratio. Not incredible.
Well, that wasn't what he was there for.
Yeah, he was he was there to run.
He was there to run and then abuse animals sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, that's why I thought maybe. Oh,
Like the dog fighter.
yeah, yeah, something like that. I want to find like some like legendary one, but I'm struggling. I'm trying to.
Mahomes is pretty good.
Mahomes.
Fat trick.
Fat trick is a good one. Oh,
They got Gronk right at least. It's just Gronk.
it's just Gronk.
Yeah.
Ooh. Travis Kelce.
Oh. Depends how recently they've updated this.
Because you could do some fun stuff with the Taylor Swift crap, but
Yeah.
what's like, or just go like super old, like Namath. Like, do they have any like really whack ones for like old players?
Older players.
Oh, just Broadway Joe.
Broadway Joe. Yeah. Okay,
That's
that makes
that one I've
sense.
heard. Yeah.
What about like Terry Bradshaw?
Yeah, like
The blonde bomber.
that's fucking great.
That's even funnier knowing Terry Bradshaw now. Like because I obviously wasn't
bald?
around to the 70s. I picture him. Well, he's the bald spot on top. And
Yeah,
then, like, around.
yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay,
Terry
well,
Bradshaw is funny.
remember when we said this was gonna be a trade deadline thing? I don't. Okay, number 2, Brian Burns.
Okay, should we talk about Brian Burns?
Okay, Brian Burns. Why is he going to the Seahawks? Oh yeah, because he's going to the Seahawks. Great. Where's Buda Baker going?
Okay, Brian Burns is probably, I don't know. Brian Burns. If we actually want to talk about Brian Burns,
Sure, let's
I
do
think
it. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Brian Burns. This is such a hard cut from what we were talking about before.
Oh yeah, big time. That's why I did it. Yeah, no, 100%,
Yeah,
just to make it as difficult as humanly possible. Let's put your brain
Brian-
as far away from the name Brian Burns as possible, and then talk about Brian Burns.
So Brian Burns, I think Brian Burns, obviously very intriguing, just because young pass rusher that I think hasn't got the chance to really shine because he's on the Panthers, and nobody has cared about the Panthers in the last 4 years because they haven't really done anything. I think if you put him on an actual playoff team, I think that would make a lot of noise.
He is consistently someone who has averaged just below double-digit sacks, which is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, because that is very impressive. Like, he came into the league averaging 7.5, and he has been above that ever since.
Yeah, and he's got a 4-year, deal. That is very cheap.
Oh, isn't it his last year?
He's gonna be a free agent next year. Yeah. Okay.
So
he's still playing on his rookie deal, and this is like they took the 5th-year option.
So reasonably, if he goes somewhere, it needs to be somewhere that it's either a team that literally just needs the last piece and is willing to let him go at the end of the year, or it needs to be someone who can sign him at the end of the year, which is the two things you have to think about, right?
It's just like Kirk Cousins, where he's probably going to be a rental.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's so good of a player that I feel like, at least personally, if I'm a team, I don't know if I necessarily want to let him go. Like, trade for him. Because even if he is going to be a rental, there is... I don't know. I'd have a really hard time arguing just to pick him up on a rental deal just because of the amount you might have to drop for him. I don't know what the estimated asking price is for him. I think that really would... determined for me what
I've heard like a 1st-round pick.
If it's gonna be a first, you need to ensure that he's coming back, right? Like,
yeah, I think so. I think you probably have to do a 1st and then sign immediately.
Either a 1st and sign immediately, or it needs to be a team that has the money to at least be like, okay, he's gonna want to come back for one. So it can't be a team that this will be their last year to try it. Like, I could see. We were talking about the Seahawks potentially doing it, but I feel like they'd be a team that might struggle in this scenario. Because if I'm a pending free agent, I don't know how much I like the odds of how much I'll like signing a 5-year deal in Seattle when our quarterback is 34. Or I think Gino's 34, right? Like, it's the type of thing where I think if I'm Brian Burns, I want to go to a contender, but I want to go to a young contender that needs a deal.
Yeah,
right?
so I'm looking at. So cap space is a little bit tricky because it's really hard. It's like the Niners have the most cap space now, which would be terrifying.
That would be
but
terrifying.
that cap space, that I think a bunch of deals start.
What would that
in
deal
for
line
them.
end up being for like overall for the Niners?
Randy Gregory, Nick Bosa,
Yeah.
like I don't even want to think about that. But I don't think it's going to happen because what happens to the
probably.
Niners salary cap is they're at $40 million, and then a bunch of deals kick in, and
To be
the space
fair,
they have next year
if
is
anybody's
$1 million.
going to make a stupid trade like that for no reason other than to fuck the rest of the NFL, it would be the Niners. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
I just don't think-
CMC.
I don't think they have that.
No,
though,
probably
because
not.
they with the deals that it looks like are kicking in, they don't have room to sign really
Well,
anybody other than
Another
rookie
that
class
one that
next
we
year.
quickly brought up that could potentially be moving into contending in the next couple of years. I don't know about necessarily. I don't know what their record is at this exact moment, to be honest with you. But so give me a second to find that. But the Jacksonville they're 5-2. Okay, so that is another team that you can throw in that mix. Where they're a team, they have a young quarterback, overall young core. They will be contending quite a bit for the next 10 years. If I'm Brian Burns, I feel like going to Jacksonville would be a very good option. It's just whether
And-
Jacksonville. Do you think Jacksonville would want him for one? And what do you think?
Oh, yeah.
that looks like for them.
I think they would. I think that's a pretty good realistic destination, because I think that when you're looking at the Jags, obviously you're gonna have to give him a ton of money, but it would be nice because he doesn't have to be the guy. He
No.
shares that with Josh Allen,
I
and I think
say,
that would be
yeah.
great for them because now they can get pressure off both edges, and that is a huge piece for them. I think that's definitely a team that can do it. Just looking at cap space for next year, I think another team, while they may not do it because they probably want some of this cap space to sign guys who are kind of going into their ending their rookie deals,
Yeah.
would be the Bengals. I don't know how much. They have $85 million in cap space next year. I don't know how much of that is going to go to guys like Jamar Chase who need to.
In my head,
sign
I
a
was
deal,
thinking the
but-
Bengals because that is another team that I would slide right next to Jacksonville, where young quarterback going to be contending for years to come, and their defense has not been historically
And-
incredible, other than that one season they went to the Super Bowl. So
And he also doesn't have to be the guy there because he has Trey Hendrickson. It's another
Very
thing
true.
where you create pressure off both sides.
yeah, well, I was going
which
to
I
say
think could be
even with
great.
Josh Allen, where they have very comparable stats. I would say Brian Burns, like sack wise, I'd say Brian Burns slightly has the upside, just overall career average. But the nice thing is they're both young. I believe they're both 25 actually. Josh Allen's 26.
Yeah.
But they're both very young. You sign both of them to long-term deals, and you have your defensive line set for the next decade, potentially. Which you have to... For the Jags, that could be huge. Because immediately you just build up this offense a little bit more. Trevor Lawrence gets a bit better. And you're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
Hell, you
And
get
I think
them now. You'd be a Super bowl contender if you're Jacksonville, I think.
Yeah, and I think that just depends on how much Carolina wants to really rebuild.
Yeah.
How much, I don't know, Carolina is just such in an interesting place right now because I think their roster isn't nearly as good as they thought, and especially I thought. I mean, I predicted.
Yeah, no, I did the
what they
same.
were
Me and
doing.
you both. Well, Bryce, if we want to take a look at Bryce Young, even he's been underperforming for most of the year to what
And
people
are
had
you-
expected of him.
I feel like if you get that's the worry is I feel like if you get rid of pieces like Brian Burns, it's almost like are you wasting the years that you have of Bryce Young in a rookie contract, or just potentially making him look even worse and wasting that draft pick anyways?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I worry about.
Well-
with that.
And the thing is, with Bryce Young, it could just be the case where he might just need a year to kind of figure shit out. Because it's not like
I think that would be
everybody
the case.
everybody assumed he'd come in and immediately dominate, but it's not easy. Like, sure, quarterbacks can be undersized in this league and work. I want to emphasize with that, but that doesn't mean it's easy to be 5'10" and succeed in the NFL, right? And that's something that I feel like
Yeah.
needs to be talked about more. Maybe it's just the thing where maybe he needs a year. Maybe he needs a year to get shit figured out, right? So I don't think it's unreasonable to say that maybe next year Bryce Young bounces back and all of a sudden this Carolina team is a lot more better off. But, I mean, is that a risk you want to take if you're Brian Burns? Or the Carolina Panthers, for that matter? Signing a defensive end who's currently 25. And do you really want to be locked into that deal if you have to rebuild again? Because you're not moving him once you sign him to that contract.
Yeah. Yeah. The other, if we want to, I think that sums up Brian Burns pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to move on, I think another couple interesting guys we can talk about in this list that kind of go together
Sure.
that probably won't be traded, but I think it's interesting is Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins. There have been kind of rumors flying around for both of them. And I think both of those players, more so DeAndre Hopkins, quite honestly, would just be such a huge piece to a lot of teams that would need them. Like, I don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs with DeAndre Hopkins with all the
We talked about that at the
they've
beginning
been
of the year
having.
as well when DeAndre Hopkins was looking for a trade. Imagine if, he ends up. Oh my gosh, that'd be wild.
Or
Wouldn't it?
even the Jaguars, like Calvin Ridley hasn't done quite what they've wanted.
Yeah.
You put DeAndre Hopkins there, or maybe DeAndre Hopkins, now that the team that he started his career with is looking a little better, maybe he goes to the Texans and gives C.J. Stroud a true wide receiver one.
Yeah. That last one's interesting. Little bit of a homecoming.
Yeah,
I don't
'Cause
know
I just don't
how
see,
much I'd
I
put
don't see
that.
how the Titans is working out. Like I don't know.
I don't know
like,
how anybody thought
I,
it would. Truthfully, it's just
no, and he's doing fine. It's just like the team he's on, there's such a limited ceiling.
Tannehill
he's still
is-
playing well.
the thing we've learned in the last 2 years is Tannehill. You can't win with Tannehill anymore. He just truthfully you can't, and I think the Titans are trying to hold on to him for dear life, basically, and we're seeing what happens with that when you try and get a player. Ryan Tannehill's middle name is Timothy. Anyway, you try and get a player like that to try and win you games. I mean, okay, there must have been. Has Levis been playing games for them? Or is
So Tannehill is hurt now. And
Oh.
this was a headline this week. Tannehill has been playing, but Levis might start next week.
Okay, so
and
has he
Willis
played
has
all of the
played
games
some.
but prior to this conversation?
Um,
Because if
on
so,
and off.
this is
On
okay.
and off.
Because
He's
do
had
you
like
know
he
what
went
his
out in the second
touchdown to
half
pick
against the
ratio
Ravens.
is right now?
No,
Do you have a guess?
I assume it's not great.
Do you have a guess? Because it's probably worse than you think.
I don't know. I'd say he's thrown maybe like 10 touchdowns to 6 picks. Let's say
You got the picks right.
6 picks.
6
How
picks.
many touchdowns?
2.
Is it more touchdowns? 2. There's no way. That's crazy.
That's what Pro Football Reference says. You know, the thing that has Ryan Timothy Tannehill has only thrown 2 touchdowns.
Good old Tim Tannehill.
Good old Timothy Tannehill. God, he should have gone with that. That's so much cooler. God damn it.
Tannehill. Yeah, he can pull it. He can
Timothy
he can pull
Tannehill with the touchdown!
he can pull a Rain Prescott and go by his middle name.
That'd be so sick. That's how, honestly, the only situation I could see myself getting behind Mr. Tannehill would be if he changes his name to Timothy.
Tim.
Yeah.
Tim Tannehill just sounds like the little
No,
sickly child.
not Tim.
that-
Timothy. It
no,
needs to
no,
be
no.
Timothy.
I don't know. Tim Tannehill just like I think if you go with the Timothy, it's gonna be shortened to Tim. And
Fair.
Tim Tannehill just sounds like the little sickly child that's in a Christmas movie. That's like about to die. or whatever,
Currently,
and then Santa Claus
Tannehill's
gives him hope or
projected
whatever.
season stats, his projected season stats on ESPN is 6 touchdowns, 17 picks.
Jesus, that's awful.
What's Kirk
Like
Cousins?
I don't
Let's go.
see why.
What's
To
big
go back
Kirk
to
go?
DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know why he signed there. I don't know why he signed there.
Yeah,
If
no,
I'm
I don't think
DeAndre-
anybody does.
I mean, if you're DeAndre Hopkins, you might as well be like.
Remember at the beginning of the offseason when he said he only wanted to play with elite quarterbacks?
Yeah, he must be frustrated as hell because he's not having that bad of a season. Like he's
That
still
or he
doing
saw
pretty
it
good.
coming a mile away.
Also, it is still better than playing with the Cardinals right now. So he did still upgrade.
That's fair. Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, I don't know. Like, the funny thing is right now, I agree. I do think that, well, would you rather be playing with a 2-touchdown Tannehill over Josh Dobbs?
I don't know. Josh Dobbs has been not that bad, so maybe
That's
not,
what I mean.
but
How many touchdowns Josh Dobbs got?
more than two. More than two.
Did you have on your bingo card that Josh Dobbs, or what's his full name? It didn't even come up. ESPN does not have a page for. It's Joshua Dobbs. My bad, ESPN. Okay, and
What is
he has
does Pro
6
Football Reference
touchdowns.
have
6 touchdowns, 3 picks. So much better season than Tannehill. Can you believe we live in a world where Joshua Dobbs is better than Tannehill? I can. Actually, I believe that quite easily.
Yeah. Yes, he's been pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
Poor guy is 1-8 in his career though. That's rough. Oh, you
What do you
know what's
expect
what's
from
funny enough?
Arizona.
You know what's
starter.
funny enough?
What?
What we're talking about? What can you guess what team Josh Dobbs played for before he was with the Cardinals? Who's the last team he started a game for?
The Titans.
The Tennessee Titans.
What? 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. It's not
Yep.
bad.
Yep.
Can you
Better
believe
than
that
Ryan
Josh
Daniels,
Dobbs is a starter in 2023? I can, because
Yeah.
Tannehill sucks.
And he's not even one of the worst ones. Like,
No, God no, he's been okay.
Credit to Josh Dobbs.
To be fair, you cannot sin him for having 8 losses because you'd have a lot more if you were the quarterback for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
It's just like, which is pretty nuts. Well, the thing is, there's so many names on this list that there's no way we'll be able to touch on all of them. Sadly.
Yeah.
If we want to
I
gloss
think-
over some of them, we didn't really talk about Derrick Henry and where he'd fit.
No, Derrick Henry is such a difficult thing because he's another guy that would be a rental,
And he's
it's
another
like,
guy
I don't
who's
know,
not going anywhere.
running back value. Yeah, I don't think he'd be going anywhere. I don't know with how running back value is. I don't know what team would be willing to trade for him because again, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to give up assets, or you could just get him in free agency next year if you really wanted him.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
The funny
I don't
thing
know
is,
how
when I
realistic
see a
that is.
trade for Derrick Henry, and this shows you how unrealistic I think it is as a whole, the idea of Derrick Henry going anywhere. I just think of like Madden. My brain just goes like, hey, 49ers. Backfield,
No,
Derrick Henry, Deebo Samuel, and fucking Derrick Henry.
Kill me, shoot me in the head and kill me. Fuck that. I'm not.
But
doing
wouldn't that
for
be
a
so
second.
funny? It's all fun and games until you get hit with a 4-man backfield. The 49ers' end goal is by 2030 to have an 11-man backfield.
I'm just not watching football anymore.
I
after
wouldn't
that.
blame
I've given
you.
up.
Oh, God, but wouldn't that be funny?
I don't even want to.
So, yeah, that's my prediction. Derrick Henry to the 49ers. Moving on.
Okay, let's just rapid fire these. I'm
Sure.
gonna. Why don't we name players and we'll just give some teams we think
Sure.
they can go to. Let's start with Mr. Just a Guy, Jerry Jeudy.
Ooh. There's a lot of teams in the NFL who need wide receivers right now. That's tough.
It's the same kind of teams that would go for DeAndre Hopkins, but I think this would be even
guess.
better.
Yeah. Could you imagine him going to the
You know,
Chiefs? Same division.
I think I was gonna say honestly, I think the Chiefs is the best thing because I think if there's
But
any place where
do you
it
think
can be a
Denver's going
reclamation
to-
project,
Is
No,
Denver
they're
going?
not going
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Right. Like you do
'Cause
not
it's
want to
in the
trade
division.
a wide receiver, like who's as third tier as Jerry Jeudy is, to to the Chiefs.
you know where I think he could go.
The third tier,
Um,
other than the third tier.
I would not have that much trouble seeing him in a Detroit Lions jersey. I don't think that's that far out. Being like a wide receiver 2 behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, like
That would be pretty nice.
especially with such a good young
Marvin
team.
Jones just dipped out.
And I'm thinking because it's out of the conference too, right? Like the Broncos would
True.
probably be totally okay with trading Jerry Jeudy to Detroit.
Okay, well, so the two options we were able to come up with, Lions and Chiefs. Chiefs aren't going to happen. He's going to the Lions. Put your money on it. Okay, moving on. What else?
Daniel Hunter is another interesting one. That's
Daniel
another, like-
Hunter. Oh, right, yeah.
It's another like interesting one because it's an aging pass rusher. I think it's again needs are similar to what Brian Burns is, but
Yeah.
I do think Brian Burns is more Brian Burns is more apt to sign with a younger team like the Jags. I think Daniel Hunter could be more of a rental.
He's definitely
for,
more of
for
a
a
rental.
team.
Yeah.
He's
I could see him being the type
I
of
could
guy
see-
who we talked about the Chiefs. I actually really like
You know-
Daniel Hunter to the Chiefs.
I do too, but I think what would be even better is Daniel Hunter to the Bills.
Ooh, I didn't even think of that.
I think that would be an even better, because who do the Bills have on pass rush? Like, they're kind of struggling to get
Yeah.
pressure on the quarterback.
That's true.
Why did they just get beat by the Patriots?
True.
Because Mac Jones actually had time in the pocket. I think the Patriots would be my, or the Bills would be my number one kind of thing. It's out of the conference. The Bills would be the perfect kind of team that would want to take on a rental like that just to get them afloat again. I think that would be an interesting spot for him to go.
No, I agree. I think that it is a really interesting one. Well, again, that's two big contenders who could potentially win the Super Bowl really any year. So, I mean, that's just a safe pick.
I view Daniel Hunter like I do Carlos Dunlap, honestly.
Ooh.
A younger Carlos Dunlap.
Yeah, I was gonna
Because,
say
like,
that's almost an insult.
No, it's not. It's not. I don't take that as an insult, because I'm thinking about Carlos Dunlap when he was traded to the Seahawks.
You're thinking of like a
because-
prime Carlos Dunlap.
No, I'm not even thinking of a prime Carlos Dunlap. I'm thinking of, because I think Daniel Hunter I think was better.
Oh, he's still.
but
is he still in the NFL? No.
Carlos Dunlap? Yeah. Daniel Hunter, I guess, I mean, god damn, I did not realize Daniel Hunter was only 28. That's really surprising to me.
No, I knew he was under 30, but I still think that
I
he's
feel
more
like he's
of a
been
rental.
in the league forever, but
Yeah.
I do think he's more of a rental. But I think of what Carlos Dunlap did for the Seahawks, like, he just provided that extra little bit of veteran help to them when they needed it.
8.5
he also
sacks
did that
isn't
for
bad.
The Chiefs.
Neither.
Like, I think Daniel Hunter could play that kind of role for a team.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really good. You know what? Like, the more I think about the Bills fit, I think it works well. Like, him with Von Miller. Oof. Von Miller, once he gets back from injury. Oof.
True. Yeah. Do you know when Von Miller's supposed to be back?
It's a great question. I do not.
Because yeah, that would really determine that one for me. But anyway, we can move on. Chase Young.
He's
if we want
practicing.
to stay on the D line, he's back.
He's practicing.
Oh, okay. So they could potentially be coming out of the trade deadline with basically two fresh D linemen to go into the second half of the year.
And I think they need that with how badly they're struggling right now.
Yeah.
They're
4-3 is not what you should.
a good football team.
Yeah, that should not be what the Bills are. Okay, well, we can... What else do we got? I was going to say Chase Young if you want to stay on the D-line.
Chase Young.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's another one. I think that's another, like, very similar to Brian Burns. I think Brian Burns is just more of a known commodity. Chase Young is just worrisome because of the injury risk. Because he hasn't, like, when he's played, he's been really good. It's just that he has not played a lot. He's been so consistently injured. I don't know. It's kind of like what teams do I think would be willing to take a risk? I honestly think this might be a little bit less like
he has
playoff
5
teams, because
sacks
if you get
on the
Chase
year.
Young, I think you have potentially a star edge rusher for a long time.
Yeah.
But I also think that would some of these teams want to take a risk when they're this close to the Super Bowl? Because it is a risk. Like, I don't think you can deny that
well,
with his injury history.
You're trading for potential, right? That's the thing with Chase Young, because everybody thought he would take over the league, but the most sacks he's ever had in a year is still his rookie season with 7.5. This year he's probably, fingers crossed, going to beat that because he's already at 5, right? Which means that he's very much on pace to get over 10, which is impressive. But like you said, those injury concerns just pop up in your head and you go, do I really want to trade for a guy who the Commanders are going to want a lot for, because they are going to want a lot for the potential that they are giving up a star pass rusher, right? But
Although it is at a reduced cost because his contract expires.
Sure.
But that would also mean the team probably has to sign him.
Yeah. Which is kind of what I mean as well, where it's like, do you really want to invest that kind of money that Chase Young's probably going to want into... And keep in mind, that 7.5 sack season was also in 2020. That was a while ago now.
Yep. In terms of giving a potential trade partner, I think... let me know what you think about this. I think him going... Again, I'm going to go cross-conference because I think those are the easiest to kind of project out. I think he would provide something great in terms of a potential young talent to a team that if it doesn't work out, it's like, whatever, it's fine. We're not aiming to contend anyways. I think he would do great on the Houston Texans. That just feels right. I think
Putting him on a
opposite Will
D-line
Anderson,
with Will Anderson, yeah.
and also
Ooh.
freeing up Will Anderson, who has not like popped this year that much.
Oh, yeah. Which was surprising because it felt like Will Anderson was one of the bigger sure things in this draft.
Like home runs.
Yeah.
I think you can unlock his potential if
Yeah.
you give him Trey
Maybe you
Young,
can
or,
unlock both
Chase Young.
sides potential. Maybe Will
Yeah.
Anderson helps Chase Young get open more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see it. I think Houston is a really good example of that because think about it like this. Chase Young's also only 24. And like you said, let's say they sign him to a long-term contract and he consistently gets his injuries figured out and consistently becomes a 10-sack guy on your D-line. You're set. You're good. That contract, frankly, it's not like his skill level on the field needs to go up for you to feel good about that contract. The only thing that needs to get fixed is his injury concerns. Because he'll hit 10 sacks this year if he doesn't get hurt. He'll hit 10 sacks next year
easily.
if he doesn't get hurt. Like, for however many years, you just can't get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be like, because again, I think it's the risk factor, and I think just because of the Texans, I think you're not that upset if it doesn't pan out.
No.
That would be my big thing.
You've sucked
Like,
for however many decades at this point. You can live with another.
You're gonna need a few more pieces, like a lot more pieces to become a Super Bowl team. Like I don't see them reaching that potential for another like 2-3 years.
No,
They remind me of like the Jags, like I won't say like they kind of remind me of the Jags first year to Trevor Lawrence. I don't make that comparison quite the same because coaching, but like in terms of the talent potential they had on that team, they're kind of in the same place to me. There's a reason the Texans are 3-3 and not like the Jags 1-16 because it's D'Amico Ryans versus Urban Meyer, and one is a considerably better coach than the other.
It's not hard to be a considerably better coach than the other as well. Is there anybody else on this list that we want to try and touch on, you think? Anybody else that sticks out to you? There's a lot of people on this list, so I think if you have more interest in the topic, definitely check out the article that we're looking at for this list is On the Score by Dan Wilkins. It's a really good article. Like, it highlights over 25 players who could potentially be on the move, and there are a lot of good names here, and I'm sure I could just go down and list them, but I don't think there's much of a point. And we were never going to be able to hit all of them. Obviously, there's no way we were hitting 25 names if we spent close to 30 talking about Kirk Cousins alone. Like, it's just the type of thing where there's so many interesting things that can be said about so many different players on this lineup, or just the lineup that you have here. The funny thing is a lot of them are on the same teams, and a lot of them aren't necessarily bad teams, which is something that sticks out to me, where, like, I think of, like...
Well, I think a lot of these are bad teams. The Vikings are like an edge case.
Yeah. That's fair, I guess. I don't know. Do we want to touch on any other ones? Do any of them stick out to you, or are you good? You're happy with it?
Not really. I mean, like, some of them just feel not realistic.
Yeah.
The rest of them, a lot of these feel not realistic. But some of these,
for example,
so like
a big one would be like Darren Waller being moved after just signing a contract. Seems whack.
Buda Baker and Saquon Barkley feel too important, even though their teams are not doing great. I don't see the Cardinals moving on from Buda Baker.
No.
I mean, if they do, I mean, we don't. Isn't like we need him, but come to Seattle because he played college ball in Washington. That would be great. But that doesn't feel
Buda
realistic.
Baker, like, Jamal Adams, and Quandre Diggs.
Buda Baker, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Julian Love, Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, Trey Brown. If you ever wanted to try to beat the Legion of Boom, you do it like that.
Where do you even, like, slide half of the safeties you just said? Like, at that point,
you do what the Seahawks always do, where they do the three safeties. They put Jamal Adams down.
Yeah,
and then they put.
I was gonna say at that point, you just
Diggs
make Jamal Adams an official linebacker. Like, at a certain point, right? Like, that's more what I meant. Where it's like, at that point, just say Jamal Adams is a middle linebacker and get it over with.
Then you have a linebacker core of Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks,
Jamal
Adams.
That's like some fucking Madden shit.
Yeah, the Seahawks defense is already really good. It's just their offense that needs to get their stuff together.
Yeah.
But
No,
I can talk about the Seahawks forever.
There's no one else that I really think sticks out to me too much. We're already crossing over the hour mark, so we gotta talk about some other stuff. So
Yep.
let's talk about that baseball and basketball and hockey and all the fun stuff. Okay, good segment.
Yep.
We footballed. So we're gonna be getting into the Edmonton Oilers, and have started the season 1-3-1 and are now dealing with an injured Connor McDavid. Already kind of a little bit rough way to start the year, obviously, not how they were looking to with all of the high hopes for, a top line that featured Connor Brown and Evander Kane. I mean, there is a lot of ways that we could potentially start this, but what have been your thoughts so far from a definitely not biased Flames fan like myself of this Oilers squad?
Okay. From the bias perspective, I love to see it. The Flames are doing terrible, but it gives me at
don't
least some sort of solace.
We do not love to wit the McDavid injury.
We do not love the McDavid injury.
Absolutely
that sucks.
not. That does suck.
It makes me happy that they were sucking before McDavid got hurt.
Let's clarify that.
we do not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wishing for any player to get injured sucks, especially a guy like McDavid.
No.
Who, as much as I hate to admit,
we can both admit as Flames fans that it's not there's a lot of people in sports who do that. That's messed up. But anyway,
it is messed up.
The funny thing is, I look at the Oilers.
Even before McDavid got hurt, they were still lost twice to the Canucks, lost to the Flyers, lost to the Jets in overtime.
It doesn't feel that surprising. It doesn't feel like it should be surprising, I guess. Well, they're losing to bad teams, which is the surprising part about it.
That's the part. And
Yeah.
they're not losing by small amounts.
No.
It isn't like they're in all of these games.
No.
Um,
The funny thing is, I look at this roster, and it makes sense that they should be losing, at least to a certain degree, because I hate that fourth line. I think that fourth line's terrible. Third line, It's like Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, Connor Brown. That's like, if you were to ask me to name a third line,
Yeah.
it's nothing special. That second line will forever be elite. Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, that's great. Love that. Even if it doesn't have Draisaitl on it for the time being, that's a great second line. Arguably the best second line in the NHL. And then you have, still currently, their top line would be Draisaitl, Kane, Janmark. That's pretty trash, but Leon
Draisaitl and Kane. Draisaitl and Kane. Kane is still okay.
Kane's a second line winger at best.
I do think the biggest thing for the Oilers was defense too.
Yeah.
I think that's important to point out because they have Bouchard, who's a good young player, but past that, it's Darnell Nurse hasn't quite lived up to what he's.
Ekholm, I don't think has been having a good
Ekholm's
season from what I've heard.
Yeah, and he's getting older.
Cody Ceci is doing Cody Ceci things.
He's never been a defensive defenseman. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Because they're not they're losing by, Canucks 8-1. Losing by 7 goals, losing by 3.
And keep in mind, that was all back before McDavid went down.
Yeah.
And it is very strange.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where I'm, again, like you pointed out, these are bad teams, and you wonder, and they're getting into a stretch where they're playing
good ones.
Yeah, at least
or even
a little
just
bit
better.
Even just a little bit better. Rangers, Flames, Stars is bad. The Flames maybe not as much, but the Stars are doing pretty good.
Yeah.
The Rangers have looked okay. Facing the Canucks again, I wouldn't have said was a hard game before, but we've seen they can lose to the Canucks.
Obviously, overreaction time. When do you think is it time to hit the panic button with this Oilers team? Obviously, now you're starting to run into injury. Yeah, of course not. I'm just bringing the idea up where it's at what point with this type of team where you're being scored on that much, do you think maybe you should try and make maybe even a move, maybe just drastically change up the lines? What do you do to try and fix a team that's on this big of a slide where you're being scored on 8 times by the Canucks?
I feel like you have to. I mean, they've tried. Like, I don't even know what the split is in between them starting Skinner and Campbell.
That's a good question.
Like, I don't know, because I would say goalie change, but I
Yeah.
think they've already been doing that because, like, in that Canucks game has been kind of a microcosm of their whole season. I think they started Skinner and he didn't do great and he let up 4 goals, and they put in Campbell and then he did the same thing and let up 4 more goals.
Yeah.
So that's what I would
To
say.
answer your question on the goalie split, currently Jack Campbell has played more games with 4. Stuart Skinner has 3. Or even if you want to go to games started, Campbell 4, Skinner 2. So one of those games played is actually Stuart Skinner coming in for Campbell. They are both.
Okay.
Jack Campbell is averaging 4 goals, 4.35. Jesus, that was way harder than it should have been. 4.35 goals against average. Stuart Skinner 4.29. Save percentage for Jack Campbell is .878. Skinner .814. Currently not great, is what I'm trying to say. Both squad, either way you look. Jack Campbell, 878, is better significantly, but saying that a save percentage of 878 is good enough is pathetic. You cannot win with a save percentage under 900. Hell, maybe even under 905, 9010. Like, you can say whatever you want about teams not needing the best goaltending in the league anymore. You still need above 9.5, 9.10. And I think if I'm the Oilers, the question I've got to be asking myself, like you said, I didn't look immediately towards the goaltending, but that's definitely where I would have gone next. I definitely agree with you. I think goaltending could potentially be something that you have to look to potentially change, because you can't be letting in 4 goals a game. You can't. You can't win hockey games. It doesn't matter if McDavid has another 150-point season. It doesn't matter if Draisaitl has 130, right? It doesn't matter. If you're being scored on 4 times a game, it won't matter.
Yeah, and I think I do think there's something in the idea. Again, we're only like 5-6 games in. I think stuff will balance out.
But that's the fun part about all this. We get to overreact for a bit.
Yeah, there's obvious underlying concerns, and I think the McDavid injury, like, I don't think it's going to sink them, but I think it just exacerbates their issues more, because they need to be, like, their best selves soon, or else they're going to continue this slide. They need something to push them out of this slide, and I think as good of a team as they can be, I think McDavid's injury just pushes them the end of that slide even further down the line. Like, I don't know if they can get out of this funk they're in without having McDavid.
And if you want to hear some crazy stats, because I'm just looking at the Oilers team right now, Draisaitl currently still has 11 points in 6 games, is sitting at a plus-minus of exactly 0, which you do not see very often with top-line wingers like that, or top-line centers even. Like, it's not very common to have that many points and still have gotten scored on enough where you are on the ice.
Yeah.
Like, that's quite wild. And obviously, take whatever you want about plus-minus. You can say a lot about this one that I want to bring up. Evan Bouchard. So he has 8 points in 6 games. Another very impressive feat for a defenseman, to say the very least. I was very impressed with Evan Bouchard in the playoffs and in the last year. He has a plus-minus of -8.
Oof.
Which is depressing. That is terrible. This early in the season, terrible. That should be almost... Evander Kane is also matching him in -8, but he still only has 3 points on the year.
It's because they've given up so many goals, because, again, I think the issues lie a lot in their defense.
But the thing is, that's a top-line defenseman. Right?
Yeah.
You got to think about it like that, where, like, usually you don't see that for top-line defensemen. Like, go around the league anywhere, right? Like, it's just not very common. Like...
And, I mean, it's like... I don't know, I'm thinking about Bouchard, and I'm like, it's a lot, because I think they are kind of counting on him to be their number 1 guy. And he's still really young, and he played really well last year.
Here's the difference between...
he's able to shoulder that.
Here's the funny thing, and I'm not, just to be clear, absolutely throwing it out there. Cale Makar is a lot better than Evan Bouchard. But Cale Makar on the season, 6 games played, 9 points. Fairly comparable seasons. Fairly comparable so far. Only a 1-point difference. Cale Makar has +7 on plus-minus. And I know anybody watching this is going to butcher us for using plus-minus as an actual like in this way where you're trying to actually make an argument with it, but it's just the type of thing where it shows how it doesn't matter how good your players are doing. If you're being scored on that much, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, it's not about like because again, the issue with plus minus is because it doesn't take into account what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Because again, like with plus minus, it could be that the Oilers aren't scoring a lot, but I think early in the season,
We're
can
seeing
see
that's
from
not
some of the
the
games
issue.
they have, they're getting scored. Like it's because they're letting in 7, 8 goals. Like
1 second.
that is the issue.
And even going
and
into this, I hate to make myself do math again. How many times have... Oh, it even just does it for me. So far, how many games have the Oilers played? Can we get an actual stat on that first? Have they only played 5, or have they played more than that? They played 7.
I believe they've played
7?
They've played.
Do you have a guess how many goals they've had scored on them?
They've played 6. They've played
6. How many goals do you think they've had scored on them?
Oh, I have the number in front of me. 27.
Yeah. What do you even say? Right? Like, that
They have
is
the most.
ridiculous.
They currently have the most goals against in the league, other than the Hurricanes, surprisingly.
That is
who have
surprising.
played 7 games.
But so is the Oilers being scored on 27 times.
Yeah.
Like, all of this is surprising. Like, we could talk as much shit as we want, just as Flames fans, about the Oilers, but nobody saw this coming from this team. It's just incredibly shocking. And I mean, you even we talked at the beginning of the year about how the Connor Brown expectations were way too high. He's currently 6 games in, 0 points.
Again. And also, I mean, that was just... I could have told you that, and I did.
Yeah.
Like, we both had heavy doubts about that, and I think I said on this podcast, if you want to rewind
Well,
and find
people
that,
were...
that I said Connor Brown would not be on the first line past 5 games, and I think it took only like 2 or 3.
And just to be clear, and and just to be clear, I was the one who was saying that the comparison of saying Connor Brown playing on top line for the Oilers was, and saying that was the same as Jonathan Drouin playing on the top line for Colorado is ludicrous, because it is. There is still such a big talent thing, and Jonathan Drouin so far failed for Colorado. 6 points, 1 assist. Like, and you were saying that you didn't think that one would work out, which is fair. I still think that if either of them is going to work, I still would have more belief than Drouin. But, I mean, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen when you're playing next to Connor McDavid, I guess.
But that's the thing, he's not going to be anymore, and that just makes it... Because
and do you really want to break up that second line to try and give him a second chance a little bit lower?
No.
So he's either... that was the thing that everybody kind of knew going into this year. He's either top line or bottom line. Or third line, I guess. But,
yeah, and it's like he was brought in to have chemistry with McDavid, and he's not going to have that anymore. And especially now that McDavid is out as many as 2 weeks. Like, you're missing, like, potentially, 6-7 games? And at the 6-7 game mark, you're at like 14, 15 games played, and if they keep on this same stretch, I don't know how many wins they have. I think it's a structural issue for this team. I think they didn't do nearly enough in the offseason because they signed Connor Brown and assumed that would fix other issues. I think they're putting a lot on their young defense, and I think neither goalie has really stepped up to the plate. I think defense, their offense will be fine. They're in a little bit of a slump, but again, against the Predators, they did put up 6 goals. It's not like they can't score because McDavid will be back. You'll still be able to score with the pieces they have, but it's like you're looking at this defense and this goaltending, which has always been the issue, along with depth for the Oilers.
It's been the same story for the last 10 years.
And people thought it would be different because you brought in Connor Brown? Like, is that what we're saying?
Well, it's also the fact that you can try... Forward was never going to be the way about it. Like, bringing in forwards was never going to be the way to fix it, because you cannot sit here in front of me and tell me that another 50-point forward is going to be what saves Edmonton when they had, like, 4 100-point scorers or over 80-point scorers last season. That's not your issue. Scoring's not your issue. It's never been your issue. Like, everybody knows that Edmonton can score. That's not new. Their issue is keeping a consistent goaltender on a year-to-year basis We've seen them kind of do better with that, hopefully with Stuart Skinner panning out. But even there, you're starting, and we are seeing them start to, they've developed defensemen since we've started to have that conversation of them having terrible defense, obviously. Like, I think of Darnell Nurse, who has been there since the beginning of these conversations where, sure, Connor McDavid can score. Who are you going to have to stop the other team from matching him?
It's more of a scoring thing for Darnell Nurse, too, to your point. Like, again, he's more of an offensive defenseman. Like, when you put him actually back there defending, he's a little bit more of a liability.
Well,
that's where it's like that team is not quite in balance.
And I think that was the idea with bringing in Ekholm last year, was to give him a defensive defenseman to play next to. It just hasn't panned out at all, with Ekholm so far having, frankly, not great season. And not great is a nicer way to put it, I think. He's been, and most Edmonton fans would tell you that, he's another guy on their team that has above -5 ±, which is just, again, say what you will about ±, it's there for a reason, and it does still tell you something. And
it shows you that they've been scored on.
It shows you that Edmonton top defensive pairing has been consistently getting scored on at a ridiculous pace. That's what that says to you. That's what it says to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's, Like, that's it.
Yeah, well, yeah, like that's, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. It's just it's their defense as a system, as a whole. They need better defense from everywhere from the top down. They need better defensive forwards. They just had such a focus on scoring that when they get scored on 7-8 times a game, they don't have enough to come back from it. That's their issue. Who knows whether they'll be able to bounce back from it? I think the McDavid injury exacerbates it a lot, but I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next month or so for the Oilers, because I think that as little as we can draw from the first 6 or so games, I think the next month will tell us a lot about who this team is.
Yep, and goaltend. We talked about goaltending earlier. Goaltenders can be streaky. Who knows? One of them might bounce back. Both of them might bounce back. Who knows? Maybe Jack Campbell will finally stop getting a touchdown scored on him every game. We'll just have to see. I think a situation where we don't see the Oilers somewhere near the top of the Western Conference by the end of the year would be very strange.
It would be surprising, to say the least. But with this pace... Who knows?
Hey, hold on to this pace, Oilers. Make sure to stick around. We like you at the bottom.
Moving on to the MLB, we've seen the last couple days, the two teams coming out of the AL and NL have finally been secured. And in a postseason of lots of upsets, lots of series going multiple different ways, we've had two really great AL and NLCS series. We've had both of them go to Game 7, which I don't know if you saw our segment last week, but hey, look at this, 7-game series provide lots of drama, and maybe you shouldn't limit it to only 3 games. Oh my god. Wow. MLB, what's going on here?
But yeah, lots of great. The biggest shocker, I think, from this entire thing is an Arizona team not sucking complete ass.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the Suns. Never mind. I'll take that back. I retract that statement. The Suns.
There we go. The Suns are good. But yeah, two teams in an MLB standpoint that have not been very good for very long. No. The Rangers, I know they are only a few years removed from losing almost 100 games. They had some terrible seasons before this, and they've really bounced back this year and kind of taken people by surprise. And it's kind of the same thing with the Diamondbacks. Coming off I viewed them as more of a young resurgent team. In my playoffs preview, I think we both had them going out pretty early, which wouldn't have even been that much of a disappointment. No, but it feels like they've really overachieved, especially against a team like the Phillies, who had just come off knocking off the
to be clear,
best
they are
team
going
in baseball.
to need to overachieve again. They're going in every single segment we talk about baseball, we talk about budget, because that's such a big topic in baseball, and it always will be. But even just that's where my brain immediately goes, because I think about the players that the Rangers brought in last offseason to make this push, including DeGrom. I know they brought in other people. My brain just is not baseballed up currently. You know what I mean. They've spent a lot of money, and it's paid off for them. And I think that's been the story for the Texas Rangers the last year. Would the that they've put into this season work out for them, because usually it doesn't. That's the funny thing. Like, we see the Yankees doing it, they suck. We see the Mets doing it, they suck. Like, and then all of a sudden we see this Texas Rangers squad and they're good, and it feels like they shouldn't be because they spent a boatload of money and all of a sudden they're winning.
Yeah,
Which
and I
almost
think
feels weird.
the Diamondbacks is almost
It's the opposite.
the opposite of that, where it's more development, where they're not signing any big free agents.
Or,
And
you
like
know,
said,
the Blue
they're-
Jays developing one of their better players. Because, you know, who would ever do that? Who would ever, like, trade away one of your better catchers to a team for a guy who can't hit a baseball for shit? Like, who would ever do that? What team in their right mind would ever do that? Like, you know, I'm not a Blue Jays fan.
Yeah, no. I think we could both take some, like,
Oh, yeah, because
just
they're
be
closer.
disappointed in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of
That too.
why is his name slip? Paul Sewald.
Yeah.
Like I think I
You
did
can also
mention
join
that
the
in our playoff
Diamondbacks
preview.
being good support group.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking of even on the Rangers side, just as a Mariners fan, it's so frustrating because we could
Simeon.
have taken their playoff spot with like two.
Yeah, Simeon.
Anyways, yeah.
That's another one. That one still
Um,
burns. Because he was so good for us, and then he just left.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I forgot that he is on the Rangers now. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, you've got him. Then you've got like Corey Seager's been playing really well. That's another guy on the Rangers. But just looking at this World Series matchup to me as more of a casual baseball fan, it feels like one of the most interesting like matchups of teams that we've gotten so far, and kind of speaks to how surprising this postseason has been. Because I feel like you get the same kind of stock teams the past few years. You've had like the Dodgers, is a big
Yankees, Red Sox.
yeah, or even like the past few years. Like the Dodgers is the big one that I think of, but like it's just these non-traditional
like
teams.
there's just generally, when it comes to baseball, there's a couple teams you think of as being the top of the top, and we've kind of seen it. This could be seen as a change of the guard, if you will, and it's also a little bit of, we're seeing the Texas Rangers. They've consistently been in the higher up in the spending department for sure, but I think this is potentially one of they're moving into the conversation where they're up there almost. They're up there. No, they're not almost. They are up there with teams like the Braves, Astros, Cubs, Yankees, Mets, Phillies in team spending, right? And, I wonder if that's a spot that they plan on holding on to. And who knows? Maybe depending on how this World Series goes, maybe the Diamondbacks try and start spending more money so that they can stay there. Because Arizona, it's a spot where teams have been struggling a little bit to succeed, obviously, in the desert, right? And now that we're starting to see Arizona actually have some good sports teams, what are the owners going to be willing to do to keep them, right?
Yeah. So like to build off of actually having it up in front of me, like you're thinking of teams like, especially the last few years, the Dodgers and Astros was the big one. That have just been continually in contention, and just feels like the same kind of teams. There's some outliers in there, like the Nationals winning it in 2019. But otherwise, it is kind of the same team. So it's refreshing to see like the Diamondbacks, who have been once in 2001.
I will say it will be a lot more refreshing. As much as I'm cheering for Simeon, just as a Blue Jays fan, I gotta say, if the Diamondbacks win it this year, that'd be so cool. Because we're seeing a team. It'd be like a lot of people were cheering for the Orioles for like a very similar reason to if the Diamondbacks win, right? Where it's a team that is not known necessarily as a consistently good baseball team, but they're here and they're ready to. They're going to fight for it, right?
They're built off like young talent too. Like I know like Corbin Carroll was a guy on the Diamondbacks who has been like consistently great for them this year as a young player. Their roster's kind of built around youth.
It feels like he's
been
been one of those guys who was almost not talked about as much, because we've seen a lot of really good rookies come out in the last year or two, but he's one of those guys, those younger players in the league that should be getting talked about more, because he's been great. Like 25 home runs, nothing to be mad about, especially at 23. Very impressive. Like
Yeah.
he's one of those guys who should be talked about more for sure.
Um, yeah, it's just so like I think the Diamondbacks are it's the Diamondbacks in particular because again you highlight it with the Rangers of how they're a little bit more of like the baseball kind of old guard. They spend a lot more money, but it's just so fascinating because it's just like nobody expected them to be in this situation.
Yeah.
Where there was I don't know if you saw this, but there's a radio announcer who said that if the Diamondbacks came back from down 3-2 to win the series, he'd retire. And so he ended up having to retire because of the prediction that he made. It's the kind of thing nobody saw this coming.
The announcer's curse lives.
Staking their careers on it.
Yeah.
It feels like a special run, and I do feel like you said, like I don't know. Obviously, you kind of hope for their sake that they can pull it off because it feels like the kind of thing that's kind of influenced a little bit more by luck.
Yeah.
Because again, like you can build a team like the Atlanta Braves and get out in the first playoff series that you play. It feels like a pretty special run in that regard. So hopefully they can pull it off. It's going to be tough though, because
I'm definitely rooting for the Diamondbacks, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be tough with the roster that Texas is pulling out and how they had a slump later in the season, I believe, but they've been pretty consistently good, and obviously both of these teams getting hot in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be the thing where neither of these teams were necessarily favorites. If I were to say one was a bigger favorite than the other, obviously the Rangers. But it's just the type of thing where it's two teams with hot hands, right? Either of them could explode for a ridiculously high point game at any point. Like, I think this is going to be an explosive slugfest of a World Series, to say the least. I think no matter who wins, I think this will be close. I think it'll be a really, really good series. I know I'll be tuning in to watch it. I'm definitely excited. I think that another thing with this Diamondbacks team is they have a lot of potential to be really good for a really long time. Like you mentioned, Corbin Carroll, obviously the catcher Gabriel Moreno that we gifted to them. Like another big one that immediately pops into my head is, like for example, Zach Gallen, if you want to name another younger guy that's a pitcher for them. I believe he's been one of their stronger starters off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of guys I guess he's only 28. 28. Okay, never mind. He didn't have that great of a year. He's just the first guy that pops into my mind. But you know what I mean. This is a team that I don't know if I personally would have said that they were going to be as good as they are. But good for them for making it this far, and good for them for when you see this potentially kicking the Texas Rangers' ass if they do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people have doubted the Diamondbacks this far because I'm looking at this roster for the Diamondbacks, and other than like Corbin Carroll, who's really caught on as a rookie, and like Evan Longoria is another name I recognize. But he is obviously getting up there in age. It's not like he's carrying the team.
Well, he never was. He never was.
Yeah, like he's more of the veteran support, like versus a team like Texas, where they have Max Scherzer as their starting pitcher, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager. Like even then, it's not comparable to lots of the big names we've seen in the playoffs. But I do think it's I do think it's interesting, just in terms of the parity that we've seen in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it's been nice to see, for sure.
And especially like if you consider the opposite of this, like what would have happened if it? I feel like all of us would have been so much more disappointed if it was Astros Phillies. Because that's I think the stereotypical matchup you could give. That's just been the case the last few years.
And something that I wonder if it would impact your want for the Diamondbacks to win it, because I'm pretty sure I remember a certain news thing that we talked about earlier in the offseason related to this player. Give me a second to confirm. Give me 1 second. Is this who I think it is? Crap, now I can't find it. Tommy Pham.
Yeah, I was going to put that up.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. Does that impact your ability to cheer for the Arizona Diamondbacks?
No. Texas is still. I'm a fan of a team in the AL West. I don't want Texas to win.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, just funny.
Yeah. Simon, do you have a prediction? Do you have a prediction for what this World Series will look like?
All of a sudden we hear John Cena or Stone Cold's music. The Dodgers come down the tunnel, win the World Series. That's my prediction. So that I end up being right all along, like WWE style. Either that or, if gun to my head, probably Rangers.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah,
like
that's the way.
My gut says Rangers in 6, but my gut would have picked against the Diamondbacks for all of these other series.
Yeah,
played,
that's the tough thing,
like,
isn't it?
I don't
right?
know. I don't know if I do trust my gut because the Rangers just feel like the more experienced, better team overall. But I feel like the Diamondbacks just have this like momentum and this quality to them that's kind of unique. But it does feel like on this big of a stage, like the Rangers will take it. Like I'm gonna say Rangers in 6.
They're so much more experienced, which I think I hate to bring that into it when we've already seen the Diamondbacks just destroy a lot of more experienced teams, obviously. But like World Series matchup, right? We're talking about that. Yeah, like when you have Max Scherzer as your starting pitcher in the World Series, getting up in there, this is his last chance to win a World Series. He's not losing to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, it would
like,
be.
That'd be so weird. Like, and I'm not saying that as I'm cheering against the Diamondbacks. Obviously, I hope that the Diamondbacks can win this. I think if I'll be cheering for them. If I have to choose one, I will be going with the Rangers though.
Yeah, I completely agree. Isn't it funny that? Do you know what team Max Scherzer started his career with?
Yeah, the Diamondbacks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I
did
forgot
not.
that.
I did not.
I
know
did
that,
know that. I did know that. I just forgot about it.
That would be a pretty because I always think of him as either like Detroit or Washington. Like those are the teams that I associate with him.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty cool full circle moment.
Yeah, of course
to see him take out his starting team. Like that feels about right. I don't know. I'm gonna give my final prediction.
No, he was drafted by St. Louis.
But who did he start? Like who did he play his first MLB game for?
Oh, never mind. I see what you mean. Okay, yeah. I was like, Diamondbacks sounds right, but I was looking up his stats anyway, and I was just like, why does it say St. Louis? Because that also sounds right. I just remember him playing for a team with a red jersey, truthfully. Diamondbacks makes sense, though, for sure.
So, it's also what the MLB does, where, like, the Cardinals picked him in, like, the 43rd round, but then he didn't sign, so then he got selected again in the first round, like, the next year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so you also agreed Rangers? Those are our 2 picks?
I'm gonna say Rangers in 6, yeah.
Okay. Rangers.
Yeah.
I'll say let's make it interesting. Rangers at 7.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. It'll definitely be an interesting World Series, and it's one where I'd actually be looking forward to tuning into baseball, which says a lot. I think it's a good matchup.
I'm going to be watching it as much as I can, for sure.
Thank you guys so much for watching Trick Play Podcast this week. Hope you guys stick around, follow us on all social media platforms. We got Instagram, we got TikTok, we got YouTube, we got everything. Yeah, and if you want to see us on the audio pod, no, goddamn.
I was like, I took the 10 seconds to math it out in my brain to figure out what side it was on.
If you want to see us on the audio podcast,
that's always so tough.
If you don't like seeing our ugly mugs, then go find us at the Trick Play Podcast, or the Trick Play Podcast at the Fresh Take Network. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, tune in next week. We'll be doing lots of think you guys may have noticed we didn't hit the NBA at all this week. That is partially because we will be doing it quite a bit next week with the season getting started up. We're going to do a little bit of a season preview. So if you are a big basketball fan, make sure to tune in for next week.
We're going to be giving a lot of predictions similar to what we did with the NFL and the NHL. So make sure to join in for that, just because you're going to watch probably both me and Caleb make a fool of ourselves, because no matter what me or Caleb might think we know about basketball, neither of us are big-brained enough to pick the Houston Rockets to win, or for example, because you never know. You never know who's going to win it all, except when you do. So we'll see what happens. It'll definitely be a good one.
I will. Maybe we'll make some more stupid predictions. I'll stall. I'm gonna give an anti shout out this week. It's the kind of week to hate on things instead of shouting out things. I haven't done that nearly enough.
I think you have.
My anti-shout.
Continue.
Okay, no, I don't think I've been nearly enough of a hater. There's always potential to be more of a hater.
That's true. You can always hit a higher hater mark.
You always could, and I think my hate is gonna go to why do companies feel like they can price gouge the shit out of us just because it's on a university campus?
Caleb, you're about to make this outro an hour long.
Today I went to this place. It was a cool place. We went to this coffee shop, and it was like the venue was cool. Like, it was a cool place. I liked the ambiance, great. But I got this like weird coffee thing. I don't even know. I'm not the biggest coffee guy, so I got some sort of like iced coffee thing. That's in a container maybe this big. Like, this is the one size they had.
Yeah.
It's decent. And can you guess how much that was? This
$5.
Is not including tax. More.
Really? $7?
A little bit more, $7.95, not before tax, which was just brutal. That was pretty good. That was like, the coffee was good, not worth $8. And then I decided to get.
I don't know if
chocolate
I'd pay
lava
anything.
cake.
I don't think I'd pay $8 for a lot of things.
It was pretty bad. I don't really know what I was doing, but then I was I was really hungry, so I decided to get this chocolate lava cake that was an additional $5. And this was just, this isn't worth $5. This was just terrible. This is, the driest garbage I've ever had in my entire life. Because it's, when you're expecting a chocolate lava cake, you want it to kind of, melt away when you break into it. But this just felt like somebody baked a piece of chocolate cake for, their son's birthday and put it up for $5 at the cafe. I don't really know. And it's so dumb, because you know that if this cafe was anywhere else, they would not get away with charging this much.
Yeah.
Because where I go to school is so isolated, and all university campuses are kind of isolated from everything else, and you know that they have college students who are up at 2 a.m. studying for their last final and just on their last straw that they're willing to pay that much for coffee.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Do better. Don't stop taking advantage of university students. We already have enough money to pay in tuition. Don't make us pay $8 for a goddamn coffee. That's my rant. I'm sure you have more to add to that.
I definitely do, because I definitely have similar stories where I am a big iced tea drinker. My particular poison is generally peace tea. And I remember I went across the street, actually, from my campus. Walked across the street to the gas station. Across the street. I want to emphasize across the street. This was officially off campus. And walked in and bought a peace tea. Just one peace tea. You buy it at most gas stations, it would be probably $2.50. Probably. This thing cost me $4.
Yeah.
And I was so pissed. I was because peace teas are great. I ain't paying $4 for a peace tea. They're great because you could go to Sobeys and buy 10 of them for $10.
Yeah.
Yeah. My anti-shout-out, I just had it in my head. Oh, yeah. Having to tip for everything when it makes no sense. This is one that pops up for me. Again, on campus, we've got a student-run little, what are they called? whatever, little thing where you can go buy coffee, muffins, all that, the whole 9 yards, right? And I go to buy myself a giant muffin that they have, which are actually, they slap. They're great muffins because I was on 4 hours of sleep after studying for probably the entire night and was dying and needed some sort of sustenance to stay alive. And I pick up the muffin, walk up to the counter, and they bring the tip thing up on me. This muffin already costed $4. I am not giving you it. I grabbed this muffin myself. If I'm tipping you, I better have to tell you I want the muffin. You have to walk around the counter behind me and grab it. Walk all the way back around. If I'm tipping you, I'll tip you if you do that. If I have to grab my own muffin, I'm not tipping you. That's my anti. There you go.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's always the little like screen they give you.
Yeah,
right, with the, like,
yeah,
tip
it's
option.
the, yeah.
And you really have to do it in front of the person. To
Well,
like
that's the
show,
funny
like,
thing, like-
hey, I'm not tipping you.
That's the funny thing, isn't it? Where like I'll press not tipping after I grabbed my own muffin and brought it to the counter because I'm a big boy, and and I'll press 0, and I'll just see the lady. She's trying to not get upset, but she's kind of like, "You asshole," and I'm just like,
You can just like feel it. You feel
I'm
a little
broke.
bit of guilt, even though you shouldn't. Like,
"I'm a broke college student. I ain't got that kind
it's
of
like,
money."
what do they expect?
You
What
think
do they
I got
expect?
muffin tipping fuck you money? Are you kidding?
No, God no.
Oh
And it's
my
like
God.
I think the worst place I've seen this is at McMahon Stadium. I went there with my dad, and we got popcorn, which again is literally they have it pre-made in the
And
back,
just to be clear-
and they just go like this. And
Yeah,
it's garbage popcorn.
yeah, of course
So
it
they
is.
just turn around, grab it, and put it down. And I remember my dad was, my dad got sucked in by it. So they get the 2 things of popcorn for me and my dad, and like 2 drinks or whatever.
Yeah.
And they give him the tip option, and they're already overpriced as hell. So like 15% is like
So
another
your
$5
dad,
or
yeah,
whatever.
your dad tipped him.
My dad tipped them,
Yeah.
but then he paid, and then he said he got a craving. So he says, oh, like he's already paid, but he said, oh, could I just quickly get another thing of M&Ms that I can ring up real quick?
Yeah.
And so they ring up the M&Ms, and the tip option comes up again, and my dad tips them again.
Your dad's
can see
apparently
it in
too
his
nice of a
face.
guy.
I can see it in his face, like I can see the conflict in his face. But the
Oh.
automatic thing just goes for the 15% tip button. I'm like, Dad, oh my God, you didn't have to. These McMahon Stadium people are
Yeah.
making so much money.
off of your dad wanting M&Ms.
Yeah.
That is actually
Oh.
ridiculous. That's why I'm happy that like I know that that's how I'd be if I didn't have the mental pat on the back of saying I am a broke college student who barely has enough money to pay for my own coffee. Like most days where it's just like I can't be buying you a coffee when I buy me a coffee. That ain't how this works.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't
That's
know.
why Timmy's is my
It's
favorite.
so dumb.
Timmy's never
Yeah, they
makes me
don't.
tip
Tim-
anyone.
Tim's doesn't do that. That's why that's the Starbucks difference. The Starbucks flips it around and asks if you want to tip $5. The Tim's just like,
Starbucks
The
flips
Tim's
it
just
around
tells you
and
to
makes
move
you
along.
pay $5 without the tip.
well, and then they add on the tip, and it's more
Actually,
like
yeah,
$7.
my other reverse shout out is all the stupid Starbucks drink names. Like I've told this story. I don't think I've told this on the podcast, but I still think this is a funny story. This is the story everybody who doesn't go to Starbucks has at some point in their life. So I maybe shouldn't say play. Whatever. I was in Kelowna over Thanksgiving break, right? So overall, I was there with my girlfriend and my family. We were all just hanging out, and she is not normally a Starbucks drinker. She, thankfully, thank the lords, thank the lords above. And but when in Rome, right? That type of thing. Why not get one while we're there? And she, for whatever reason, I don't remember why anymore, couldn't go in herself. I think she wanted to do something else and just gave me her order. She said about 10 different words in about 7 different languages.
Yeah.
And I had to write it down. I wrote down this entire thing, pronounced every word wrong. This lady at the Starbucks cashier is looking at me like I'm a 6-year-old idiot, like who doesn't know anything. And then at the end of it, they make it, and then they call me over and go, "Do you want like to sprinkle like some like cinnamon garbage?" Like they said another word in front of cinnamon, so that's how you know it was fancy. It must have been like, "Do you want like burnt cinnamon sparkled on top of it?" And I was like, I am the wrong person. The only thing I like in my coffee is my coffee. Thanks. So, yeah. But at the end of the day, the thing ended up costing like $7. It was like this big. It was very depressing. So,
you get a tall, you get a tall being the small one. Tall,
Welcome
grande,
to...
venti,
Oh
Trenta.
It makes no fucking sense. I could go on 1,000 rants about why I hate Starbucks, but yeah, no, it is.
I don't even. I mean, it is ridiculous. I don't even hate Starbucks that much though.
Oh
'Cause
my
they make
God.
the drinks that are kind of like chocolate milkshakes, and I really like it.
No. I would rather drink tasteless garbage from Tim Hortons for $2. Not saying that Timmy's is tasteless garbage, but if it was tasteless garbage, I would rather drink tasteless garbage. I would rather make instant coffee than have a Starbucks coffee most days. Which anybody
Yeah,
who is
you
a
don't-
coffee drinker would know that is basically a ludicrous statement, but I feel so sick to my stomach after spending that much on a drink that I would just rather have instant
Yeah.
coffee. Which would
Yeah,
actually
it's
make
pretty
me sick.
bad. As someone who's not as someone, I feel like I'm pretty neutral. I go to both Starbucks and Tim's. And when I go to Starbucks, I just don't think about the price. Like I
Yeah,
just
you
eat
have
at-
to. You
get it
have
out the
to.
mind.
You have to
Because
like
when I realize I'm paying $7 for this.
yeah. I think you just have to be willing to accept that, right? Because
Yeah, it's nice when you have gift cards though.
Sure.
Starbucks gift cards are like
Timmy's
the
gift cards are
perfect
the
brand.
best gifts ever.
Yeah, Starbucks
That's
and
another
Tim's gift
thing.
card. Like I paid 20 cents for my Starbucks drink yesterday. 'cause
The
of
funny
gift cards.
thing-
it was great.
I can tell you right now, the one gift that I remember the most from last Christmas was a Timmy's gift card with $25 on it that I got from someone. That gift
It
card
gets you through.
was awesome.
Yeah.
That was a great gift. Because it's the type of thing
yeah.
where everybody disses buying people gift cards. Let's like bring that back.
It's kind of nice.
Buy me
It's
Timmy's
kinda
gift
nice.
cards.
It's
That's
kinda
what I
nice,
want
like-
for gifts for now on.
Yeah, just a stack of gift cards.
Yeah, this is just to all of my family, Christmas or like birthday related. Just buy me Timmy's gift cards. Seriously,
This
that's
is
like-
why. No, this is why you work at a summer camp for a job.
Yeah.
The parents who showed up with these bad boys.
Oh, that is sick. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's pretty sweet.
Shout out
Oh,
to the parents who
Here's another rant. As
tip
somebody
people
who
at
is,
Tim's gift card.
you want to hear another fun rant that nobody will relate
Let's-
to except to me, because not a lot of people are commentate sports games. Surprisingly, I know niche audience, but when you're about to you're middle of a game, and they decide that the on-campus Tim Hortons won't open on weekends just to spite you, and that's the only reason they don't have it open, just to spite me. Because they know that Simon Chaskovsky is going to be dying halfway through his first soccer game that he has to call that day, needing a coffee, but now we just won't be open today.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. I as not a sports commentator, I still get that. There's a Tim's. We have 3 Tims on campus.
Yeah.
And like if you guess it, because 2 of them are closed. 2 of them are closed on. There's only one on
Should
the
watch
weekends.
me try and
If you
call a game with no coffee.
if you
Those are fun
guess
games to
wrong
watch.
or yeah. Shout out to coffee. Anti shout out to how expensive it is.
Yeah.
That's the main message.
Shout out to the second school school debt I'm gonna be going into just on Timmy's coffee.
Yep.
Taking out double the loans just so I can get that sweet double in the morning.
This is
How it be.
to wrap up the outro. Listen to
Yeah.
our podcast so that we can get enough listeners to eventually pay for our crippling coffee.
Wouldn't that
addiction.
be the dream?
Yeah.
Can we start we should
What?
start a trick play Timmy's fund.
Like kick.
Yeah, Kickstarter.
trick
get
play
Simon and
Kickstarter.
Caleb more coffee.
Yeah, I think it's a great.
I would invest.
Kickstarter.
Would you invest?
I would
You better
donate.
invest.
I would donate. I
Yeah,
would
you
donate.
better
Yeah.
donate. Think about the benefits, such as a less pissed off Simon most of the time.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And also another thing, I would die much earlier because I'd be drinking 3 coffees a day. So those are all things you can fund your money towards. Remember, it'd be terrific. Give me your money. You know all that hard work money you work all day to do it? Give it to a college student so that he can buy multiple coffees that he doesn't need.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. It is a great idea. That, or we should just start a fund so that we can start a trick play sports gambling thing where the entire idea is actually who can lose more money. I've thought that for a while. Like do a flip on it. Like just put a bunch of money together and just compete to see who can lose more money. But you have to like put it on a certain percentage. Yeah. Like you still have to. So you have to basically bet. I mean, you're like, you know what I mean. You
I'm not changing anything about the way I make predictions. I'd lose lots of money just.
Oh
as
no, I
am.
would too. Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a God. Yeah, it's a good thing that this isn't a sports betting podcast. That would be bad.
Yeah, we have just guaranteed the Diamondbacks win the World Series. By the way,
We did. Oh yeah. I mean, we were both smart. Thankfully,
sorry, Rangers fan.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
So, just to be clear, you're willing to say you'll jump in the ocean if the Rangers don't win the.
I've still got to jump in the. I've still
gotta
got to
do
jump in the ocean once.
We ain't
I've still gotta
letting you
jump in
off the
ocean
hook. Ugh.
It's happening. It's
gotta
happening,
happen.
and it gets worse for me the colder it gets here. So honestly, like you guys are getting a more entertaining
that's true.
experience the longer
That's
I wait.
probably true. Oh, it's gonna be so good.
Keep tuning in because it'll be there at one point. Don't you worry.
Keep tuning in. It'll happen eventually. Yeah. I can just imagine though if the Flames had lost that first game and then I waited this long to jump in the Bow River. It is currently minus 20.
Yeah, it's snowing. Yeah,
it is
yeah.
minus 20.
Wow,
you would be
that.
hearing me waiting, going like, oh, next week. By
Imagine living in a city where it's not currently like positive temperatures. That couldn't be me.
Yeah,
couldn't be me.
Couldn't be Vancouver, right?
It's great here. I don't know what year. It's currently like 10 degrees. We're just living it up.
Yeah,
It's 12.
Vancouver's pretty cool, except for the fact that Canucks. But yeah,
It's okay.
It's okay. Canucks are okay most of the time. Sometimes.
They beat the Oilers. They can't be that bad.
Oh, that's true. They did. They also have Pettersson and, Quinn Hughes and probably someone else. They've got a pretty good team.
Demko.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They do have a goalkeeper. It's a very good point. Yeah, they do have somebody who goes in between the pipes and sometimes stops shots. Sometimes. Okay, that'll do it. 20-minute outro.
More than you can say for the Flames. Yep.
This week we tried to keep our other segments lower, and this is what happens.
Our outro is
Also, another thing I'll add on. I'm probably gonna, if I have time this week, try and find an opening song for the podcast so that we can do a cool intro. If it's on the podcast and you've somehow, for some reason, made it this far, let me know what you think. Like, what do you think of the new intro that probably isn't there? If it's not, you'll know what to expect next week. It's gonna be nuts.
Yep.
Just wait till we get, like, it's gonna have explosions and not really. It's gonna be great. Full on Michael Bay intro. Yeah, that'll do it. Thank you again for watching the podcast. Follow and subscribe everywhere that you can, because you can. It's free. Doesn't hurt anything. It just makes number go big. And number go big makes Simon's brain go ooga booga. So big number good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So subscribe. See you next week, hopefully.
See ya.
See you.